Hello, folks. Happy Friday. This is Marcus from Your Move Games, and I have an outside games feature for you today where we're going to review a game other than Battleground Fantasy Warfare put out by a different company, but that possibly some of you out there may actually enjoy. I'm a little bit daunted by this next game because it's a doozy. I'm also excited about presenting this game because I've been aware of this game for over a decade now. I don't know if many of you know this about me, but for the longest time I was a Starfleet Battles player. Which is basically a tabletop pen and paper space combat game, space combat simulation based on the Star Trek universe. And I was actually a rated ace, which means I spent way too much time playing this game. So I moved on from that, but for the longest time, Starfleet Battles was considered to be the gold standard of all space combat games. Very rich, very complex. The problem with Starfleet Battles was that it's in two dimensions, all right? Well, enter this game. This is Squadron Strike. This is put out by Astra Games and designed by a good friend of mine, Ken Burnside. And this game right here, I consider now to be the gold standard of any tabletop space combat game that there is. This is the second edition of the game. There are various editions of this game, but the cool thing about this game is not only is it a space combat game, not only does it work in 3D. You could play it in 2D if you like, but then you're like missing a lot of the functionality. It also utilizes, and this is an option, but it utilizes Newtonian physics. In other words, you can play this game in a mode that wouldn't necessarily be the way that you visualize happening in movies, but the way space combat and space travel would actually happen in the physical universe. So I'm not going to take a serious deep dive. We're not going to take a dive at all, really, into how the rules work. I don't have the time for that. But just to get an idea what this game is about. So each of the game pieces is played on a hex grid. As you see, it comes with the game. And there's customized hex grids that they make. They have a beautiful map that Kenneth showed me a little while ago. And I'm trying to be careful here. This is a ship. All right, you have the side of the ship, and here's the front of the ship, bottom. And they are on these little stands right here. And you're going to ask yourself, what are you looking at? Well, basically, this is elevation. So this is the main line. You can actually have a ship just on the baseline of a hex. And what's neat about this is that you don't just have six hexes, six facings, as most others use, but also you can face right down the spine. So you really have 12 options of facings in this game, which is really nice. But you can, since we move in 3D, you can have this ship face straight up, straight down, even pitch on its side, or they have various angles that you can work on. For example, this ship happens to be heading up on a 30-degree angle. I don't know if you can see it from the side, and my little thing's coming apart because I didn't glue it like I should have. But this is, imagine it's glued. You could also have it at a 60-degree angle if you switch it around. So now a ship is climbing at a 60-degree angle. You can also have it descending at a 60-degree angle. There's all kinds of basically any three-dimensional representation you can do, and these markers represent like how high above the plane of the map your ship is, or how far below the plane of the map. All you have to do is put a black marker on top of there, and this is let's see, 4 plus 4 is I'm not going to get into it. I can't even remember, but basically this is somewhat above the plane of the map. Actually, I remember now. This is 24 high, and you plot your movement. You have this nice little plot chart right here. It's called an avid. I'll get to that in a minute. And once you plot the movement of where your ship is going to go based upon the facing of the ship and the speed of the ship, at the end of your turn, you're going to arrive here at what's called it's called the destination tent. And I'm actually misnaming that, but basically, this is at the beginning of the turn. Your ship starts there and winds up over here. Now, the way that you accomplish that is this neat little tool called the avid. Now, this is not simple. By the way, this is not a beer and pretzels game. If you think you're going to sit down and bang this thing out in an hour, you're dead wrong. But for people that want the full immersive experience of a full tabletop space simulation game, there's none better that I've seen out there than this game. Anyway, so what you do is you can plot your movement and your facing by using this with a dry erase marker, and you can indicate the front of your ship and the back of your ship, and the various facings of your ship. So this is a ship that's facing direction A. Actually, I'm facing direction D. There's little map markers on here. So this is absolutely backwards. But so if you wanted to simulate a turn and a downward facing, you would do something like this. And throughout the course of the game, your ship would move in and try to steer to that course right there. And this is, by the way, this is erasable dry erase marker. Does that look familiar, kids? So this is not a very simple thing to pick up initially. You have to figure out how to visualize where your ship is facing, not only the direction it's facing, but the altitude, the elevation. You can pitch, you can yaw. This ship can be on an angle. You could actually be flying backwards and upside down if you wanted to be in this game. And since this is three-dimensional, you also have to worry about your weapons arcs, because your weapons aren't going to be able to shoot everywhere if they're facing out weird angles of your ship. So this is a target. So you can take like there. This is how you get your target bearing. So if you have like phaser or a weapon on one side of the ship, it can't fire out that side or anything like that. This is a vertical plot tool to help you plot. Like if this is the right here, that's the plane where your ship is. You can actually plot movement. I have that little square filled in. Plot movement up or negative, negative movement if your ship's going to descend. And then you have a horizontal right there to determine you're going left, right, or center. Now, there's three modes of playing this game. The first mode doesn't use any Newtonian physics at all whatsoever. The second uses one, and the third mode uses two Newtonian laws of physics. Seriously, if you're going to get started in this game, you should start with the first mode, which is basically the ship heads in a direction. You can turn it mid-turn and all that stuff. It's kind of cinematic. That's how it works. But if you really want to get the full experience, you should really work up to the final version that it's the full boat with all the Newtonian physics in place, because this is where the game really, really shines. So basically, you're not going to have an instance where a ship is going to be heading in one direction, and then you can just simply turn it. The ship keeps going in that direction, so you do something to stop it. So in other words, if you're applying a certain, like 5 points of thrust to go this way, and if you want to come to a stop, well, you've got to apply 5 points of thrust in the opposite direction to stop. Otherwise, your ship can conceivably just keep on shifting this way, and you can actually pivot your ship. You can turn it, but it'll keep heading this way. Of course, when you apply thrust, and say you're applying thrust and you're going to turn to the right, your ship isn't just going to go, eh. It's actually going to do something more along the lines of this. It's going to pivot a little bit and then turn. But, again, you're floating in the vacuum of space, and I'm really messing up the piece here because I didn't glue it together like I should have. But anyway, you get the idea. And here's what the counter sheets look like. You can pull these counters out, and every single one of these folds up in a neat little boxy ship like this as I'm messing it up. And this is a ship system, by the way. All right, don't be frightened. This is a dreadnought. It's a really, really big ship, so it's got a lot of systems. The point is that there's a lot of work that goes into learning the AVID system. The AVID system is the heart and soul of this game. It's the movement plotting device. Once you get this down, though, everything falls into place. The rule book itself, it's about 140 odd pages. However, don't be frightened. A good deal of this book is filled with examples for all three modes of play. So even though this isn't a rule book, these are all examples to get you up on how to use this, and it's showing you how to plot the various movements. Now this is a turn to the right and what looks to be an upward pivot. Maybe I'm wrong. Kind of let me know. But anyway, and you also have this tool right here, which is a basically it's a range table lookup for your ship if you're firing on enemies. Because remember, your ship isn't just like, you don't just simply count the hexes on range 5. You can have two ships like right next to each other. I'm just going to use this to represent two ships, but they could be about 15 elevation points apart from each other, so they're actually long range. Remember, this is 3D, so you have to use your imagination a little bit. But as far as representing the three-dimensional nature of space combat, I think that Ken and his teams have done the absolute best that anybody could possibly do with this. They put a lot of thought into this. And once you get it down, once you get past that learning curve, this runs pretty smoothly. It doesn't have nearly the same amount of rules as Starfleet Battles, believe it or not. And on the back of this, you have the nice little page with the sequence of turns and that sort of thing. So that's it for my review. I'm not going to get any further in because I'm going to go down a rabbit hole that I'll never escape from. But if you're really into like a fully immersive experience for space combat, there's one other thing I need to mention here. What's cool about this is they have their own races of ships, but they also have sets that are compatible with Star Trek. So if you want Star Trek ships, you want to fight Klingons against Romulans, you can do that. I think that they've rolled in the Honor Harrington universe, and you can even do it with Star Wars level ships. So it's basically any ship, any universe, and they have rules for all these things, and they have, they have the the ship system display. It's an SSD for any race. So it's not like just their own made up races. If you want to take the Starship Enterprise and try to bang it against a Klingon cruiser, it happens in this game. I've actually got an expansion for that back there. So if you're really interested in this sort of game, I strongly suggest you visit the website. I'll put a link down below for Ad Astra Games. Ken's a great guy. He deserves your money. But more importantly, this game is actually worth the money. This is a really outstanding piece of work. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and I'm out of here.